What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zans, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. No guest this week, but we do have a football game to recap. Steven, it was a lot of backups. It was a lot of meaningless football, but there's a lot of guys who are fighting for jobs. What did you think last night with the Jets versus the Falcons?
Yeah, like you said, I think it was 17 out of 22 starters didn't play. Did get to see Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. Felt pretty good about the showings that they had. The game a little bit underwhelming, but I think you come away feeling all the reports from the joint practices with Atlanta leave you feeling pretty good about how the Jets performed, how their starters performed against Atlanta starters. So overall, the takeaway is they won. So that's good. They battled back in the second half, got to see Streveler. We'll get in more detail overall, though. I think, you feel pretty good about getting the win and about just the reports that were coming out of joint practices. It's nice to see the Jets actually win one of those for a change. I know you were tweeting it out too. It seems like the last decade they haven't won a joint practice or haven't, been the better team in joint practices for a long time. So how do you feel after last night, man?
I mean, I didn't care as much about the game result. Obviously, like you said, most of the starters didn't play. I was at the Badlands drinking thing at Ale House in Hoboken, which was a good time. Thanks everybody who showed up, and really thanks to the guys at Profit Exchange for the free pizza and teach everyone about their app that's coming out, which we'll talk about more later. But overall, I mean, you didn't like what you would see from the first half. Mariota was kind of torching them. Granted, most of the guys weren't starters. I know Bryce Hall got cooked by Kyle Pitts, which is not what you want to see, but Kyle Pitts is probably going to cook a lot of DBs, even guys who are better than Bryce Hall. So it is what it is. But what I do like is they did make adjustments. They changed kind of really their entire game plan in the second half once they put Streveler in, which I thought was awesome because I know he kind of stole the show because he just had this moxie about him, and everyone was super excited, saying this guy is the real deal. And honestly, and I put out my updated roster predictions right now based on the guys who are the 80 left on the roster before they have to get down to 53. I think he's going to make the team over Mike White. And I know people are like, well, why would you say that? He's just a camp body and whatever, which is a fair point. But he brings more than what White brings. I think the athleticism is key. One thing Connor and Joe touched on Badlands today was he has the ability to be a goal line quarterback where they could bring Flacco off the field or Zach off the field if they wanted to and just have him go in there for a play to try to score a 2-yard touchdown. But also, it just seems like he just has that it factor, and he it seems like the locker room loves this guy, and Salah was glowing about him too. So it's a cool story. He's probably never going to do anything of substance for the Jets. I know Mike White had his one moment, but he's been very underwhelming during this preseason and even in training camp. Everyone's been saying he's been very up and down, mostly down, and he's had a couple moments, but we saw him after that game. I know he had a decent start against the Colts. But in that Buffalo game, he was brutal. Mm-hmm. And he also, I know he threw 4 touchdowns in the Bengal game, but he also threw a lot of interceptions too. I know, I don't want to brag on the guy, but he's the third quarterback for a reason. So I'm at the point where it's why don't you go for the guy who has a little more intrigue because of his skill set than the guy who's just going to vanilla-ly run the offense. I know that's not really a word, but I'm just saying, I think Streveler is interesting. I know, why are we talking about Chris Streveler, but he actually made last night a little bit fun. So yeah. I was super intrigued by him.
No, I think it's worth noting. We came into the preseason saying that the Jets were, we're going to see a lot of Mike White, probably to showcase and maybe flip for a late round pick. And I think that's kind of transitioned to showcasing Mike White or giving Mike White a ton of playing time to see if he can actually, hang on to that QB number 3 spot. And I think right now it's slipping through his fingers. Mike White's claim to fame specifically in that Cincinnati game was that he took the checkdowns, and that obviously worked for that game. After that, it hasn't really worked, and honestly hasn't been able to even hit him. So you're right, to run the offense, in the manner that he does, and to not really have any one thing to kind of grasp on that, makes Mike White stand out. That's really tough. So when your skill set is predicated on accuracy and hitting those, and you're missing guys running wide open like Jeff Smith across the middle, which would have been 6, that's problematic. So when you bring a guy like Streveler in and he shows that he can move the offense and that he's got that kind of one thing, which is his mobility and ability to extend plays or, take off and run the ball, that obviously kind of sets him, a little bit ahead of Mike White. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think clearly, Salah maybe, jacking Mike White up a little bit, saying that, we have 3 starting QBs in this team, but I think this decision is going to be very tough for them. So we'll see how it shakes out, man. Come down to when they have to get down to 53.
Yeah, I think whether it's Mike White or Streveler, they have to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster because essentially, like, they're going to keep one of those guys for the beginning of the season because we're assuming Flacco's probably going to start the opener and maybe the second game. Obviously, anything could change based on how Zach's progressing. And it seems like everything's been really positive. And I know Joe Flacco actually said after the game that Zach's been looking really good and like he's feeling good and everything like that. So that's a good sign, obviously, as he continues to rehab his injury. But I do think that this team needs to carry 3 quarterbacks just because, Zach's already missed time in both of his seasons. Flacco, he's
37.
He's 37 and, he's could be one hit away from his career being over. I hope that's not the case. He's been a good consummate professional Super Bowl winning quarterback. But I think this team needs to carry a 3rd quarterback, which is why I ended up putting Streveler as the 3rd quarterback on the team. But if it's White, it is what it is. I'm not going to be like upset about it. It's just like I like the intrigue of Streveler. Going off more like fringe guys because there's not a lot to take away because the only guys of substance that we really got to see last night was like we saw Garrett Wilson for a little bit who made a couple nice plays. We saw Sauce, but nobody throws at him. So you don't even really know what to say, but he's clearly doing his job if there aren't things happening against him. We saw Brees a little bit, but I'm glad he didn't get too many carries because I don't want him getting hurt. He would be the guy that would be the most concerned about if they actually gave him significant time in the preseason because he is a running back and he's going to get hit every time he touches the ball.
Especially playing behind a second string offensive line.
Yes. Yeah. And then obviously Jermaine as well. But the one guy besides Streveler who was awesome and I think should make the team is Lawrence Cager. Mm-hmm. He is a converted wide receiver. I remember reading about him for the first time in 2020 when the Jets obviously didn't have a preseason, so we didn't see him really ever play. But he was a guy who actually showed some things, during camp as a wide receiver. Granted, that offense was terrible. The quarterback was not good either. But he was somebody that I remember Chris Nimbley used to say on Play Like a Jet that Cager always caught his eye. And it seems like he's really developed his skill set because he obviously converted to being a tight end. But I think he makes the most sense as somebody that should make the team versus like carrying a guy like Wesco because we think Rucker could do a lot of the things Wesco does as an H-back. And it seems like Cager could be a hybrid where they can line him up out wide or obviously, inside as well. But he was impressive, man. That touchdown was awesome. I was getting super pumped when he was running into the end zone.
Yeah.
What do you think about him?
No, I like him, and I think they should keep 4 tight ends. I think Wesco kind of showed last night, with that stupid penalty too, that he's probably he's on the outside looking in. I think Rucker could fill in for that H-back role that Wesco held. I think Cager can kind of be that Swiss Army knife between tight end and wide receiver, which actually probably gives you some flexibility at the wide receiver spot as well. So I know I saw your roster prediction. I think it's spot on. I think you're probably looking at, the top 4 being Wilson, Moore, Berrios, and Corey Davis. And then you throw Jeff Smith in that mix as the 5th one. And then Cager can kind of be your sling guy between wide receiver and tight end. Knowing that both of those guys, last guy I mentioned, Jeff Smith and Lawrence Cager both play special teams. So I think Mims, Wesco are guys on the offensive side that are probably on the outside looking in when this team gets down to 53. It's going to be tough, but man, that 2020 class is looking bleak at the moment.
It's horrible. I also left Ashton off the list and Zuniga off the list, but I do think if they get rid of some of those guys, they could Zuniga could be a practice squad guy. I definitely think from a depth standpoint, but man, doing the defensive line was so hard because there's so many guys that could be a flip of a coin. Like I remember in our chat, someone was saying, Ane should probably make the team. He had a great return for a touchdown yet last night, but I feel like Solomon Thomas is that guy because we talked about it earlier. I feel like he could be the guy because of his history with Saleh. He coached him for 3 years in San Francisco. He's a former number 2 overall pick or whatever, or number 3 overall pick with San Francisco. So I think that he could be the guy who gets a little bit of an edge because of the history with the head coach. I mean, maybe they don't think he's anything and he's just a bust, which is kind of what it seems like, but I kind of felt that's maybe what give him the edge. I also had, because I had Mims on the outside looking in as well, Irvin Charles, who he had a couple catches last night, nothing really crazy, but he has been somebody that I've heard good things about and been reading about, during camp. And the reason why I put him on the roster is people and Michael Meekin, this is you. They only have small wide receivers. Corey Davis is the only guy who's 6'3", 6'4". Garrett Wilson's maybe a generous 6'1", probably more like 6 feet. And then the other guys are all under 6 feet, which is obviously an issue. So they do need that big body guy. So that's why I lean to Irving Charles. He's younger than Mims, more unproven. It seems like they really like him. And I think Mims, hopefully they could fetch maybe a 7th round pick from at this point because his value is close to none. It's actually insane. And I was so high on him. And it's so disappointing. And I feel for the guy. It seems like it just never could really click for him. But do you have anybody that you think could be a surprise guy who makes the roster?
I think honestly, Zonovan Knight is the one. And I know last week we talked about this on the show with Jake, where I really had a hard time seeing the team cutting Tevin Coleman. I know what he means to that running back room. I know clearly what he means to guys like Saleh and Mike LaFleur. Being in that offense for so long, having 2 Super Bowl appearances under his belt. I know that that's something that the rest of the young guys in that room looked to and kind of spoke upon as that's a big deal to have that experience there. So I think they'd have a tough time cutting Tevin Coleman, but I think Zonovan Knight looks really good, honestly. And I think he'd be a kind of a very good complementary third back there, especially considering Tevin Coleman's injury history and the fact that I just don't think you could hit twice on that. Him having a semi-healthy year last year, he's probably due for an injury this year. I know they're not going to, look like that, but that's the one that I'd be very interesting to see. And then you flip to the defensive side of the ball. I think you spoke about it. Safety is interesting to me. I don't know how Ashton Davis is going to shake out. I think it looks like, obviously Jordan Whitehead's going to start. LaMarcus Joyner's kind of penciled in, but the fact that it's really wide open for that other safety spot and we haven't heard a single thing about Ashton Davis, I think tells you all you need to know. Right. And I know he got in late in the game yesterday, and that's it's just mildly concerning for a guy. So that just speaks even more to how that 2020 class is extremely questionable at this point.
Oh, man, I'm cutting my losses. I'm like out on everybody. Basically, it's Brady Man and Bryce Hall at this point. Maybe Zuniga, but like it's just it's tough because
the Ashton thing has always just been perplexing to me because the biggest thing that I heard was his athleticism and speed. And I'm not a scout, man. I can't watch with those eyes, but I've just never seen it. It doesn't translate to when you watch the games. He takes bad angles and he looks slow. And he's caught a couple of interceptions, which has been good, but it doesn't translate when I watch it. He doesn't look like a player to me that belongs in the field, especially as a starter. I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No, you're good. I totally agree. I think just Ashton's it's just hard, man. It's like you were intrigued by the athleticism when they picked him, but it seemed like he was just more of a project. He was like an athlete trying to be a football player, not a football player who was trying to be an athlete. So it sucks because you're just like, all right, basically this is like a McCagnon draft class and you don't want to, get to that point, but I want the best possible guys on this team that can contribute and not look lost when they're out there. And for the most part of his Jet career, I know he was hurt a little bit as a rookie and obviously recovered during the offseason last year. So this is like his first real training camp, but he really has failed to impress. And you got to just cut your losses at a certain point. And I'd rather have a guy like Pinnock, who I thought looked really good in the Buccaneers game when he was playing safety versus when he was playing corner. So like, I'm totally fine with taking rolling the dice there. And then obviously Will Parks, who had like the hit of the night, that was such an awesome hit. Like that's what you want to see. You want to see your guys just playing hard. And he's obviously been having a good camp because they have been saying a lot of good things about him. So I do think that the safety room is going to shake out as Whitehead, Joyner, Parks, and Pinnock as of now. But I think Ashton's possible because of his specials. But, maybe Joe Douglas just be like, hey, let's just wipe this draft class clean. I messed up. 21's good. 22 is probably going to be good. So let's just see.
Yeah, I know it. What about you? Is there any other people that you think are either surprise cuts or surprising going to make the team?
I'm gonna pull up my predictions. Surprise cut. I actually realized I cut McDermott, but I forgot that he's hurt right now. So it's like I wasn't really thinking about it. So that was a surprise cut. I actually would maybe retract that and switch what's his face? Herman, because I just forgot about him and I know that the staff likes McDermott. At linebacker, I had CJ, I had Quan, Quincy, Sherwood, and Hamza. Hamza was actually a guy that I was very on the fence with. I like his potential, but he kind of showed next to nothing last year. I think Sherwood was the better of the two, but I do think they need some depth behind Quincy, CJ, and Quan. So that's why I ended up keeping him on the roster. But I think for the most part, nothing's really too surprising. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Feeney got cut, but they did bring him back. So it's like, if they didn't re-sign him, if they didn't want to pay him, they wouldn't have re-signed him.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to end up getting cut. And I think the locker room really likes him, but he would be somebody that'd be interested to see if he actually does get cut because he's not very good. But it is what it is. Yeah. I remember DJ on our show last year was like, they're paying him $3 million. That's why he's on the team. So
exactly.
Who knows?
Exactly. He's a fun character to have around. Like I get it, but he was not good when he played last year. But Either way, I know, it's tough. I go back and forth preseason. You're hyped to watch Jets football. It's great to see him back. You have to continue to remind yourself that it really means nothing. I always go back, we talk about nostalgia. I think if I can remember correctly, the Jets were 4-0 in the preseason in 1996 when they went 1-15, and then they were 0-4 in 98 with Parcells, and they went 12-4 and won the division and went to the conference championship. So it doesn't matter at all, right? But as we look ahead to the last game of the preseason in the Giants, and I know that Saleh came out and said that the starters will see some action this week. I think it is probably to be debated how much. But what are you looking to see out of the final preseason game? And before we turn our attention towards 9/11 and the Jets' first game.
0 injuries. That's all I care about. I don't even care if Joe Flacco looks good or he looks bad. I don't want anyone getting hurt. We already saw Zach go down. We saw Mekhi go down, even though it was in practice, not in a game. Just no injuries. That's the key. I mean, it's the Snoopy Bowl, as they say. So you like to stick it to the Giants, but it doesn't mean anything. And I just want this team to be fully healthy going into week 1. It's all you can really ask for. The Jets have never really had that luck. But that's really the main thing. What about you? What's like the one thing you're looking to see from this Giants game coming up?
Yeah, honestly, I'd like to see the starters and how they do, particularly on offense. So we can because really I got excited listening to or reading about how the Jets performed against Atlanta. And I know Atlanta isn't expected to be anything great this year, but still, it's an NFL team. So hearing how they performed on Thursday, Friday when they had joint practices, that was exciting. Or maybe it was Friday, Saturday, either way. And it's exciting to see, how we're hearing that Flacco is running the offense and how good it looks. And they have weapons at their disposal. And, they got tight ends and receivers, man, in the running game. And I think they got a solid offensive line. So I'm kind of excited to see, if you get the starting weapons out there all at the same time, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson. To me, Garrett Wilson's like our kind of shiny new toy. And listen, it was a 8-yard catch he had last night, but just seeing the hand strength and him kind of changing angles to go get it and the catch radius out of him, that was amazing. I know he's had some drops in practice, but I can look past that. Just seeing guys like that all together, knowing what this could mean for week 1 against Baltimore, that's what I'm really excited about, because I really do think this offense has a chance to be surprisingly good come September and for this season.
It's funny because, obviously we wear the Jets goggles, which I'm stealing that phrase from you, and we think that this team's going to be better than people expect, but they're really not getting a lot of love in the national media. I don't really know how I feel about it. It's like you can either take it as, okay, sleep on us, I don't really care, or you could take it as no one respects his team. But at the same time, do you blame them? We haven't really earned the respect, and that's why I was so keen on the fact that they kind of beat up on the Falcons, because they were showing that they were the better team. And that's what we want. That's what we want them to be. We want them to be on Sundays where there's times where you're the Jets were the better team on the field, where it's last year, I guess you could say they were a better team on the field when they played the Texans and the Jaguars. They probably weren't the better team on the field when they played the Bengals and the Titans. They just were the better team that day. But the better team on the field, you want to, overmatching in your different matchups. And I was thinking about this. It's the Jets are playing the Giants this week. How many positions would you say the Jets are better than at the Giants? Quarterback, I'm going to say is a toss-up because Daniel Jones has been inconsistent. Zach Wilson, we really don't know what he is. So I'm not even going to give either team the edge there. Running back, from a top to bottom standpoint, Jets. But obviously Saquon has the most proven track record, but that, he hasn't been that guy for 2 years. Record
is one season, right?
Well, he had 1,000 yards the second season. I was looking at this because there's a lot of hype around him. So that's a good thing. Okay. Wide receiver, definitely Jets. I mean, Kenny Galladay's if he wasn't making so much money, he wouldn't make the team. That's the only reason he's going to make the Giants. Kadarius Toney, flashy young player, but we really don't know what he is just yet.
Banking on potential.
Yeah, and then this guy Colin Johnson, who's a rookie, and Wandale Robinson, who's also a rookie. You don't really know what they're going to be. Tight ends, Jets, not even close. Offensive line, Jets.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, offensive line, Jets. What are we missing here?
D-line,
probably Jets, but I would say Leonard Williams is probably the best lineman of either team combined, unless Carl Lawson lives up to his potential.
But overall, the Jets have a better D-line.
Yes, from top to bottom. Yeah. Linebacker, Giants. The Giants have better linebackers than the Jets because Jets linebackers stink. Corner, probably Jets now, but if they had Bradbury, I probably would say Giants.
Yep.
Safety, probably the Giants.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been the case for a while. I know that the Giants aren't exactly the bar, but it's still good, and you're going to see that they're having a joint practice this week. Like, let's see, can they be the second week in a row where they're the better team on the field?
Should be.
I know the Giants obviously are in like a weird spot where you don't know like really what they're going to be. Could they be a team that's really just kind of thinking about next year and punting on the year? It's a new general manager, new head coach, or they're a team that's trying to win because at the end of the day, they're trying to establish something and build something. So I would love to see the Jets beat up on them too, because and that was something that I'm a little pissed about, because Zach Wilson didn't get the opportunity to be part of these joint practices and really show what he's made of against another team. But are you looking to see anything from those joint practices against the Giants this week?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's it. You want to see the Jets kind of come away, and obviously you'd love to see them dominate, but you just want to see that the fact that they're winning more than they're not. And really when they go against live competition, and that's kind of what we're hearing. And I think that's more of the argument to eliminate the preseason altogether, is that the players, coaches get more out of these joint practices than they do the actual preseason games. So that's what I'm looking to see, is just everyone to continue to look sharp, for the Jets offensive line to continue to hold up, for their defensive line to get after the quarterback. Those are the types of things that I'm looking to see. And obviously for everyone to remain healthy.
Definitely. Health is key. I just want to go into this with everybody equipped for week one. Obviously, the Ravens are going to be a challenge. I'm not saying the Jets are going to win the game. Probably not going to pick them to win the game, even though I'll probably talk myself into it on Sunday morning when I'm on my way to the stadium. But I realistically think that they will lose the week one. But I'm like quadrupling down that they will beat the Browns. Like, if you cannot beat Jacoby Brissett, I don't care if it's Zach Wilson, it's Joe Flacco, it's even Chris Streveler. You got to beat Jacoby Brissett. He stinks. That's just not because then you're in a huge hole, because then you're facing potentially 0-3, obviously with Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming to town. That's just like a terrifying thought, just you can't get to that point. Like we've talked about this ad nauseum, and I hate bringing it up again, but it's like no more winless Septembers, like 2-2, 2-2. I don't know how you get there.
I know 2-2 is what you have to come out of September at. I have a sneaky suspicion they're going to beat Baltimore week one. I don't know what it is.
Joe Flacco revenge game.
I just have a feeling the stars are going to align. They're going to come out smoking, and they're going to beat Baltimore in week one. It's going to be close. They're not going to kill them. I just have this sneaky suspicion that that's what's going to happen. Maybe, I don't know what I just have a good feeling about this year. I'm not going to let the preseason and kind of how they've come out, the first half of each of the first two games sway me from that belief. I hate buying into this stuff, but I just do. And every player is talking about how it just feels different this year. I'm buying in, man. I see you don't. I do. I've been a Jets fan too long, but you've seen these things. I really do. I think it's changing, and I got a feeling they're going to come out smoking and beat Baltimore week one. And there's no other reason for me to think that than it's just a hunch and a feeling I have based on 36 years of misery, and I finally feel like the tides are turning.
Listen, eventually what goes down must come up, and vice versa. The Jets have been so far down that you think that eventually it's going to flip, but I need to see it to believe it. I believe in this roster. So I'm actually going to peg you this, because I had this conversation with my dad yesterday that I basically was like to him, I'm at the point, if they don't show significant progress, and you're probably going to think it's very surprised I'm going to say this. And I was telling Joe this also when we were at the Ale House last night. If they really don't show significant progress, and I'm saying like if they're at like 4 wins, 5 wins, but like it's just not looking good, it's like kind of like lucking into it. Everything is on the table. Get rid of the coach, get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the general manager. I think there's no excuse for them to not be pushing towards 8 wins. I understand the AFC is tough. There's going to be teams that are going to regress downwards. It just happens. Every single year you see bad teams end up being better, and you see good teams end up being worse. The Titans are the king team that I believe is going to regress, because they don't have AJ Brown anymore. Derrick Henry's another year older, even though I'm a huge fan of his. They're a type of team I think that can regress. I think the Jaguars could ascend. It's just, there's no excuse. We don't even play in the AFC West. We don't play them, and we're not in that division. The only team we play is Denver. That's it. And I think they're a little bit overrated. I think the Chargers are the best team in that division from top to bottom, then Kansas City. What do you think?
I agree. You can't sit here in August and say that the schedule is going to be the problem. Like, the schedule is the schedule, and every other AFC East team plays the same teams that we do, minus a couple, right? So it's not like
we play Seattle. They stink. They could be the worst team in the league.
Like, you have to play the teams in front of you. Listen, it was a tough AFC last year too. And you know what? The Bengals went from last place to first place in the Super Bowl appearance. I'm not saying the Jets have to do that, but every year teams surprise, and every year teams fall. So it's you got to play the teams in front of you. So the schedule is just, it's a non-factor. Like you have to play the teams that you have to play, regardless of how they fall. Play in the AFC North all in the first 4 games, so be it. Okay. Beat the team that's in front of you. All that matters is that one game at that time. So the excuses are out the window. So that's my thought on the schedule and on the tough AFC. But I 100% agree with you. If this team is built to win 7, 8, 9 games, they're built to make significant improvement over last year. So if they're only at 4, 5 wins come the end of 22, everything's on the table. You are absolutely 100% right, because that means that barring significant injuries across the board, which is not out of the, we're not out of the woods on that because of the Jets. However, if that is the actual case, then you are absolutely 100% correct, because that means that GM, coach, and quarterback were all failures.
You know what?
They've built this team talent-wise to be able to lift the quarterback up. They should be competitive.
The one thing I've seen from a lot of people on Twitter recently, and I don't agree with it, is like, if Zach isn't the guy, I still think Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh should keep getting another shot. Joe Douglas should not get another shot. I'm sorry. Like, I've liked a lot of the moves he's done the last 2 years. How many years are you going to give this guy? His record is atrocious. Like, the 2020 class is terrible. So that's already an L on his resume. 2021's good. He's made some good trades, but like, if it doesn't equate to wins, what are you doing here? It's like he has like the best PR in the world. Like, I like Joe Douglas. He's easily been the most competent GM they've had since Tannenbaum. Not that that's saying anything, because the last 2 in between them have been atrocious. But like, you have to see the results on the field. It's a results business. It's not, next year it's coming. No. Like, you have to. You have to. Like, that's why I'm like, how could someone realistically say to themselves, if this team wins 5 games, unless everyone got hurt and they like somehow got to 5 games and it was like a miracle, how could you say that they should run it back? How? There's no reason. Like, you can't. It's as insane.
As good as we think Joe Douglas is, right? We're still, like I just said about, Kadarius Toney or Saquon Barkley, you're banking on potential, because the reality is he's 6-27 with the teams that he's assembled as a GM.
Yeah,
that's not good.
No.
You've won 6 out of 33 games. That's not good. So
his teams have never won a September game. Think about it. It goes back to 18. He wasn't the general manager then.
And they've been out of it by October. So it's bad news across the board there for Joe Douglas.
2020 was a complete wash. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to really build for the future. When you think about the draft class, he'll sabotage Adam Gase.
Yeah, but he did. But you can't tell me that he didn't go. I mean, you can make the argument that he went in building a team for an Adam Gase coach team and an Adam Gase staff. You can sell me on that, but you can't sell me that he tried to sabotage the guy because he knew he was looking at.
I'm kidding a little
I know,
bit, but
yeah.
But the thing is, like, when you see what those rosters, those players are, how many guys from that 2020 team are like anything at this point? Think about it. Frank Gore retired. Joe Flacco is now our starting quarterback. P. Ryan probably on the way out. Zuniga on the way out. Maybe they trade him. I don't know. But like, there's so many guys that were just terrible. They're on that team. And I get it. He was trying to really build from the ground up. But like, I'm just tired of this narrative that Joe Douglas should continue to get a pass. It's like, how much, like, I know Joe and Connor are telling you, but it's like, compete or F off. Like, it's like, come on. Everything should be on the table if they're not like, 8, 9 wins. I mean, 7, I could live with 7, but like, I would be a little sour because most likely if they were at 7, there were probably a game or 2 that they could have won that they didn't win. We have to talk about the kicking competition. I know that was something that we talked about before the show, but what are your thoughts on Zerline? I'll pass it to you first, and then I'll chime in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I like it, but I'm surprised. I feel like
You're surprised? Really?
I am. I feel like for the team that they're kind of assembling, I thought they would have went for the safer, more automatic guy, even though he didn't have the leg to make it from like 50 plus. From a golfing reference, I think, Panero is kind of the guy that can hit the ball consistently 200 yards down the middle of the fairway and be the safe bet to make par or bogey every time. And Zerline's kind of like the guy that can maybe hit it 350, but he might slice one into the woods. But he could also give you the potential to put one on the green on that, dog leg over the trees. And he's got that home run ability, So I just thought the way that this team kind of shook out and points are going to be at a premium. So getting that safer bet a guy that could hit it from, 40 or let's say 49 and in. Not that much of a wild card, more of a low risk, low reward, as opposed to Zerline, who's obviously a higher risk, higher reward. I thought that was going to be the safer pick, but all in all, I'm glad that Zerline is the pick, because I kind of like that. I think when you have a young team like this, second year quarterback, I think having a guy that can bag it in from 55 yards out is something that you probably want. What are your thoughts?
Happy with it. Like you said, I thought Eddie actually did a pretty good job considering the kicking situation before him last year. So, best of luck to him. Obviously, if something happens to our line, they should bring him back immediately. But I'll tell you why I like the, going with Zerline over Eddie, who's a little bit younger. One, he had 7 consecutive years with one team with the Rams, which is great. You want somebody that a team relied upon. Obviously, he went to Dallas as a free agent, and then they cut him, obviously, after this past season. So you're like, oh, why they cut him? If a guy gets cut, it's like there's a reason they cut him. I know we talked about before the show that he had a case of the yips, couldn't make his PATs, but I think that's something that's very correctable. The other reason that I like him, in addition to obviously being on a team for a while and being reliable, he's kicked the team to go to the Super Bowl. He kicked the game winner that sent the Rams to the Super Bowl when they, lost. Yeah, they lost to the Patriots that year in 2019. So it means the guy is able to kick a clutch kick when you need it. So that's why I feel good about it. I mean, we really haven't had a consistent kicker for a long time since Nick Folk. I know obviously Jason Myers was good for 1 year, but then they let him go. But at the end of the day, I feel comfortable with Zerline. It's not like they're going with an unknown like that guy, Vivek or whatever his name is. I could still hear that doink in that 2019 home opener again. I was sitting on that side of the field when he just shanked it so bad. And I was just like, I don't feel good about this game. And of course, it was an epic collapse when they're up 16-0. That just left a dark cloud over me. It was awful.
Kari Vedvik, what a throwback.
Oh my God. That was tough. Because that game was just crazy because he missed those kicks and then they go for 2. And then Sam has that crazy scramble and he just throws up the Le'Veon Bell and just goes right into his head. Crowd goes crazy and it's just.
I know it, man. It was, what you think about. I always think about stuff like this, like how different the trajectory of everything could have changed on that one game. Like, who knows? Seriously, maybe I don't know. Maybe
they're 8-8. They're 8-8, not 7-9.
Exactly. I mean, Sam Darnold had mono symptoms that game, so he's still going to get mono and stuff. But it's just weird to think what happens, and if the Bills lose, what happens to Josh Allen there? You never know. It's just everything. It's everything happens for a reason. So I guess we should be thankful because Case is now long gone. And we're moved on.
Oh my God.
So thank you, Corey Vedvik.
I mean, honestly, thank God we were not doing the show during the Gase era. That was the most low I've ever felt as a Jets fan. It was peak pandemic when things weren't open and it was just miserable. And just that guy was the coach. I was like, the best thing about him is they had to wear a mask. I was like, I don't have to see his face. I guess that was the one good thing.
He used to wear it up here.
I know. So oh my God. He's staring to the play sheet every week. But let's not talk about Gase. That's just it's bad. That's like Kotite for you. Because I was really young when Kotite was the coach and I don't remember.
You always paint me to be this old guy, man. I was only 10 and 11 when Kotite.
All right, but you remember Richie Kotite better than me. I'll say this, he had the drip, he had the sick winter jacket that he'd wear, those crazy glasses and the hat,
it drove my dad nuts because Leon Hess, when he introduced Rich Kotite, said, he's a D's and Dems kind of guy, and that's what I like about him. And it's what the hell does that even mean? Man, thank God he followed up and said, you know what? I screwed this up so bad. Let me go get Parcells. And that changed the course of the franchise for the next 15 years.
Happy belated birthday to Bill Parcells. He turned 81.
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's probably up in Saratoga, man, enjoying his time up there. He loves it up there.
Probably saying the Jets stink. I'm happy I left that place. I remember the end of the Bill and Bill documentary when they started making fun of the Jets. I was just like, do they really have to slip that in there?
You know what? Parcells had some good years here. That it bothered me that they did that. It bothered me that Belichick didn't want to walk in the Jets locker room and Parcells didn't want to go in there either because of that. It was weird. I didn't like that. Show some love.
I know.
Leon Hess gave you everything you wanted, man. Come on.
I know. And you almost went to the Super Bowl. So it's it is what it is. But yeah, it was a light week, I would say. Obviously, there was the joint practices, but I would say overall from the preseason, it wasn't much to take away from. I mean, we saw, obviously, Bryce Hall got cooked, which wasn't fun. But at the end of the day, let's just get through this week and then hopefully get to week 1 with no injuries in practice.
Yep.
It's like the one thing you forget about, like sometimes injuries do happen during practice during the season. It's very rare, but it is possible. And I just want this team to be, as, fully loaded as possible, for lack of a better phrase. But is there any closing thoughts, Steven, before we cap this show?
Let's see. Cager up, Streveler up, Mike White down, Ashton Davis down, Bryce Hall way down. So
he's making the team, though.
He's making the team, but I think it's a safe thing to say is that Eccles has surpassed. I'm sorry, Eccles has surpassed him as the third cornerback on this roster. But we'll see how things shake out, man. I'm excited for joint practices again. Like you said, I think the Jets are the better team here. So I'd like to see kind of second week in a row the Jets kind of showing their strength and winning these joint practices. And then let's close up with injury-free preseason game 3 and get our way to week 1 against Baltimore, where I think the Jets are going to come out victorious.
Oh man, from your lips to God's ears. Crazy thing is, as bad as the Jets have been, they haven't lost a preseason game since Adam Gase's first season. I know 2020 there was no preseason, but went undefeated in the preseason last year, won their first 2 this year. Are they on the trajectory of the Ravens streak? 22 in a row or 21 in a row?
Further proof that the preseason does not matter at all.
I said this to Joe last night. The reason why you should never buy into anything in the preseason, the Lions that went 0-16 went 4-0, and the Patriots that went 16-0 went 0-4. So that's everything you need to know about what the preseason means. And what's his face? Joe Bedigo always would say, non-alcoholic beer. That's a perfect way to describe it. Because it's like, what's the point of it? Nothing. Oh man, we're getting a little delirious here, but thanks everybody who's been tuning in. We appreciate all the support on both, this YouTube feed as well as our new podcast feed. Please subscribe, rate, review on Apple or Spotify. We appreciate everybody who's done so since we launched back in July. Obviously, if you guys listen to us or you're Badlands, Turn on the Jets fan loyalty, keep an eye out for the Profit Exchange app launch. For anyone who doesn't know about that, it's going to be super cool. It's anyone who likes to bet on sports, but you're actually going to get the ability to, actually bet on odds that you want and different spreads that you want, which is cool. I think there will be more information coming on that later in this week. But yeah, we appreciate the support and we look forward to talking to everybody next week.